Good evening, folks. This is Deb and Dave, and this is your weekly wake-up call. So I'm going to turn this right on over to Dave so we can move it along.
So I know people are paying attention to George Santos. Now, George Santos is actually has won the New York U.S. House race in District 3. He actually lives relatively close to me. He lives in a neighboring district. And what I will say is that none of us caught any of this. We'll talk about a little bit about why, but I want to educate in terms of what's going to happen now. And I had to realize this on the fly too. We have talked about the Republican strategy for a very long time. I mentioned Christina Pushaw over and over and over again. I mentioned this one article all the time because she basically laid it out. Anything the Democrats do, they're going to skewer them for, and anything the Republicans do, they're going to defend. George Santos will be in that New York House seat very, very soon. There is absolutely no way that he is leaving that seat without an investigation. Now, let's talk about some of this. The claim from the Republican Party that Democrats also embellish. Well, let's go into this a little bit. Are they right that Democratic politicians, and all politicians, sometimes embellish? That is true. That one example that I feel is appropriate is Richard Blumenthal, who is a senator who is from, I believe he's from Connecticut. So he, back in 2010, ran. Okay. And when he was running, he claimed that he served during Vietnam. And the way that he stated that sounded like people might think that he was a ground troop in Vietnam. He had 5 deferments. He was in the military during the Vietnam War. So he was criticized in a New York Times article for the way that he stated his service. Richard Blumenthal then clarified his statements and apologized to veterans. He is still a senator, and as a matter of fact, we have a statement from Richard Blumenthal in regards to the passage of comprehensive relief for veterans exposed to the burn pits. So does this count as an embellishment? It does. Okay. Number one, it was a consistent statement about one issue. Number two, he quickly apologized and he clarified the statement. And number three, he has been a clear and consistent advocate for veterans since he was elected in, I believe he started in 2011. George Santos is saying that he embellished his record. I don't know at this point if George Santos's name is George Santos. Everything has to be investigated at this point. From his religious background, from him being not Jewish, but Jew-ish, being Catholic, his employment record, his business record, everything, his charities,
openly
everything.
Gay, and having divorced a woman in 2019. Is he married? They can't find a marriage certificate. There's all kinds of stuff here. And where does he really live? Okay?
All of this is extensive to the point where Letitia James will be investigating. George Santos is not going to relinquish that seat. He's not going to do it. No one in the Republican Party is going to ask him to relinquish his seat. Nassau County Republican leaders have gone so far as to tell him to clarify. George Santos has, quote unquote, come clean to some of the things, saying that he embellished his record, and yet he's saying he is not a criminal, despite there being potential criminality here in regards to fraudulently stating things about taxes, his businesses, his donations. He has a $300,000 donation from a Russian politician. Okay, so all of this is going to be investigated. George Santos and the Republican Party, where they are denying criminality, and the Republicans, there is an article here where they were basically joking about it. They knew about it. Is there a law against lying per se? If it's criminal, yes. Okay. And there are breadcrumbs that are leading people to that. Who's at fault here? Well, the Long Island Press said nothing about this. They underestimated the power of the importance of this seat. The Democrats had information on George Santos, but he lost to Tom Suozzi in 2020, and they underestimated his ability to win, saying that he was a nut and that he'd had no chance. The DCCC had information on this man and failed to properly publicize it to the public or bring it to Letitia James's attention until after George Santos won. For people to call for George Santos to, quote unquote, do the right thing is incredibly misguided and naive. It's not going to happen. Now we have to press Letitia James to continue her investigation. We can cry, bitch, and moan all we want. By the way, George Santos was not in my district, but I'm going to follow this case, this situation. I know John Cooper, if people know him from Twitter. George Santos has the privilege, and I guess probably the disadvantage, to being in John Cooper's district. So trust me, I'm going to be getting more and more information as this moves forward. All of what I've told you is public. God knows what we're going to get coming forward.
Yeah.
But
one other thing, to expect the GOP to hold him to account when Kevin McCarthy and critical House members knew beforehand that he was lying, you can forget it. They don't hold themselves accountable for anything.
They don't. So if you want these guys out, we've said it before. Now you're stuck with him until maybe he gets convicted or he gets pushed out. In shame.
By the way, 81% of his district voted. And where were the Democrats? Okay.
By the way, this is a heavily Republican district.
You know what? I'm going to say it, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. The Democrats need to get off their butts. We need more than 52% of registered Democrats to vote. If 81% of Democrats voted, we may never have to worry about the GOP again. I'm serious, folks. Okay?
Yep. We're at 10.
We're at 10. We're done. Talk to you later.
See ya.